You know that feeling, that quiet, nagging sense that you're just floating? I'm talking about waking up, going through the motions, hitting your marks, but deep down, you know the engine isn't revving anywhere near the red line. It's a specific kind of internal heavy, the weight of unfulfilled potential. It's almost like being stuck in rush hour traffic. Maybe you're on the 405 or the BQE, just idling. You look out the window and you see life moving in the other lanes, people speeding by, but you are parked. Your foot is hovering over the gas. You've got all this horsepower under the hood, but you aren't going anywhere. You're just burning fuel.
That is a dangerous place to be, because it doesn't feel like a crisis. It feels safe. It feels comfortable. And that is exactly the trap. We live in a culture that obsesses over comfort. Soft chairs, climate control, easy answers. We design our lives to avoid friction. But what if that comfort is actually a cage? What if that safety is slowly, quietly destroying your ambition? There is a voice in your head that whispers, "This is good enough. Relax. Take the easy road."
But there's another voice, isn't there? A quieter one that says you are operating at maybe 40% of what you're actually capable of, that you are leaving a massive amount of potential on the table every single day. Today, we are going to talk about waking up that other voice, grabbing the wheel, and finally slamming on the gas. We're going to look at why we get stuck in that mental traffic jam and exactly how to break out of it. Stick around because we are about to get uncomfortable in the best way possible.
Welcome to The Last Read, books for your ears, wisdom for your life. Today, we are cracking open the ultimate guide to mastering your own mind. We're not just talking about motivation here. Motivation is flimsy. It comes and goes. We are talking about callousing your mind, turning it into a fortress. Later in this episode, we're going to discuss the accountability mirror. It sounds simple, just you and a piece of glass, but it is one of the most terrifying things you will ever face. It's about staring your insecurities in the eye, putting them on a post-it note, and refusing to look away until you fix them. It's about stripping away the polite lies we tell ourselves to feel better.
And we'll break down the 40% rule. You know that feeling when you are completely tapped out? When your lungs are burning, your brain is screaming quit, and you are certain you have absolutely nothing left to give. According to our author, you're only 40% done. You have a governor on your brain, just like a limiter on a car engine, and we're going to teach you exactly how to remove it.
This is the mental toolkit that separates the dreamers from the doers. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button right now. You do not want to miss the tools that are about to change your life. But before we get to the tools, we have to talk about the mechanic. The man who didn't just write these rules, he bled for them. A man who transformed himself from a depressed, overweight cockroach sprayer into the hardest man alive.
David Goggins. If you don't know the name, you might know the resume. And if you don't know the resume, honestly, it sounds like fiction. We are talking about the only member of the U.S. Armed Forces in history to complete Navy SEAL training, Army Ranger School, and Air Force Tactical Air Controller training, the trifecta of suffering. He's a man who once completed 4,030 pull-ups in 17 hours to break a Guinness World Record. Let that number sink in. 4,030. Most people can't do 10. He did them until his hands were literally ripping apart, just to prove it was possible. He runs 200-mile races through Death Valley. He runs on broken legs. He pushes the human body past the point where biology says stop and physics says break. But here is the thing, and this is crucial.
David Goggins was not born a warrior. He didn't pop out of the womb doing push-ups. If you met him in his early 20s, you wouldn't have seen a Navy SEAL. You would have seen a guy weighing nearly 300 pounds, working the night shift for a company called Ecolab, spraying for cockroaches. That was his life. He describes it vividly in the book. He was depressed, he was overweight. He was earning a living spraying poison in the back of Steak and Shake restaurants from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. His diet? A box of mini chocolate donuts and a large chocolate milkshake from 7-Eleven every single night. He was, by his own admission, a man with no future, a man haunted by the feeling that he was wasting his life. And then, something snapped. He saw a documentary about the SEALs, about men who detested mediocrity, and he decided he wanted to be one.
But the recruiter laughed at him. At 6'1" and almost 300 pounds, he was considered too fat to even try out. They told him he had to lose 106 pounds in less than 3 months. Impossible, right? Well, he did it. He lost the weight. He went through 3 hell weeks, the hardest week of SEAL training, in a single year because of injuries that kept rolling him back. He broke his body, and then he rebuilt it. And this brings us to the core message of his story. Goggins isn't special because of his genetics. He's special because he calloused his mind. He built the hardest man alive out of a depressed cockroach sprayer, brick by brick. So, how does a guy eating donuts in a parking lot transform into a human machine? It started with a very specific ritual, something he did every single night in his bathroom, facing a piece of glass that he called the accountability mirror.
It wasn't a ritual of vanity, and it certainly wasn't about self-love in the way we usually hear about it today. There were no positive affirmations stuck to the glass, no mantras telling him he was perfect just the way he was. In fact, it was the exact opposite. Goggins calls this the accountability mirror. The concept is simple, yet terrifyingly difficult to execute. You stand in front of the mirror, alone, and you tell yourself the raw, unfiltered truth. You strip away the social niceties, the excuses, and the lies you've been using to protect your ego. For Goggins, at that time in his life, the truth was ugly. He looked at his reflection, shaving cream on his face, and he said it out loud. He told himself he was fat. He told himself he was lazy. He admitted he was uneducated and had no future if he stayed on his current path. Now, I know how that sounds. In our current culture, that sounds like toxic self-loathing. But Goggins insists this isn't about hating yourself. It is about data. It is about establishing an accurate baseline.
Think of it like a GPS system. You cannot plot a course to a new destination if you refuse to admit where you are currently standing. If you are lost in the woods, pretending you are safe at home won't help you survive. You have to admit you are lost. So, he started using Post-it notes. He would take a sticky note, write down a truth, and slap it on the glass. You are fat. But next to it, he would write the action required to change it. Go run. This is where it gets relatable for the rest of us. We often tell ourselves we are out of shape because of our bad genetics, or we aren't getting promoted because the boss plays favorites. The accountability mirror strips that away. It forces you to admit that you aren't out of shape because of your DNA. You are out of shape because you chose to eat takeout and watch 3 hours of TV instead of going to the gym. It forces you to acknowledge that your daily choices, not your circumstances, are the architect of your reality. Whatever goal Goggins had, whether it was doing more pull-ups or studying for the ASVAB test to get into the military, he put it on the mirror, and he couldn't take the note down until the work was done. It held his feet to the fire every single morning. Once he started being honest with himself, he could finally start the work. He could start grinding. But, as anyone who has ever tried to change their life knows, the moment you start pushing your limits, your brain starts to panic. It begs you to stop. It tells you that you've done enough, that you are at your limit. Goggins found out that this internal voice, the one screaming at you to quit when things get hard, is actually lying to you. It turns out we have a built-in safety mechanism, a governor on our engine, that stops us way before we are actually empty.
Which leads us directly to one of the most famous concepts in the entire book. Goggins calls it the 40% rule. And the core argument is simple, but it's hard to swallow. He believes that when your mind tells you that you are done, that you are completely exhausted, that you cannot possibly take another step, you are only 40% depleted. You still have 60% left in the tank. Think about that. The moment you feel like you've hit your absolute physical or mental limit, you aren't even halfway there. The rest is just a mental barrier. To explain this, Goggins uses the analogy of a car engine, specifically a stock car with a governor on it. If you look at the speedometer on a high-performance car, it might go up to 130 miles per hour. But if the factory put a governor on that engine set to 91 miles per hour, it doesn't matter how hard you press the gas pedal. The car will start to shake, the engine will stutter, and it won't let you go past 91.
The car has the physical capacity to go faster, but the software is limiting it to keep the engine safe. Goggins argues that our brains function the exact same way. It is our internal governor. It's a survival mechanism designed to protect us from pain and suffering. When you're running a marathon and you hit the wall at mile 20, or you're in the gym and your muscles start screaming on the 10th rep, that is your brain's governor kicking in. It sends signals of pain, doubt, and fear to force you to stop, because it wants you to be comfortable. It wants to save energy. But just like that car, the limit isn't real. It's a setting. Goggins learned this the hard way during his ultra-endurance races. There is a famous story where he was running a 100-mile race. He hadn't trained properly for it, and by mile 70, he was effectively broken. His kidneys were failing, his feet were destroyed. He was sitting in a lawn chair, unable to move.
His governor was screaming at him that he was dying, that he was empty. But by slowly convincing his mind to take just one more step, and then another, he realized he could tap into that hidden 60%. He finished the race. He proved that the pain you feel isn't a stop sign, it's just a checkpoint. The problem is, accessing that reserve fuel isn't easy. It hurts. And when you are deep in the pain cave, as he calls it, trying to push past that governor, you need something to keep you moving forward. You need a source of energy that is immediate and powerful. And that is where his next tool comes in, something he calls the cookie jar. But this isn't about snacks, it's about how you fuel the fight when you have nothing left.
So, let's talk about the cookie jar. Now, usually when people hear cookie jar, they think of a treat, a reward you get for being good. But in Goggins' world, this isn't about sugar, and it certainly isn't about rewarding yourself with a break. The cookie jar is a mental archive. It's a repository where you store all your past victories, big or small, and more importantly, all the hardships you've managed to survive. See, Goggins grew up with a literal cookie jar. His mother would stock it, and when things were rough, which they often were, that jar represented a small source of comfort. But as he got older, he flipped the script. He turned it into a strategy for resilience. Here is how it works. When you are in the pain cave, that moment we just talked about where the governor is screaming at you to quit, your brain tends to focus only on the suffering right in front of you. You forget who you are. You forget what you're capable of. You feel weak. That is when you reach into the cookie jar.
You pull out a memory of a time when you were broken, but you kept going. You remind yourself of a time you succeeded when the odds were stacked against you. Think about it like this. Let's say you are at work. It's 11 p.m., you have a deadline tomorrow morning, and the project is a disaster. You are overwhelmed, tired, and panic is setting in. Your brain is saying, I can't do this, it's impossible. Instead of spiraling, you reach into your mental cookie jar. You pull out that memory from last year. Remember that miracle project? The one where the server crashed 2 days before launch, you didn't sleep for 30 hours, and yet you pulled it off. You delivered. You remind yourself, I survived that.
I figured that out. I am the person who navigates chaos. Suddenly, the current deadline doesn't look like a stop sign anymore. It looks like just another Tuesday.
Goggins uses this constantly. When he was going through Navy SEAL training, Hell Week, shivering in the surf, barely conscious, he wasn't thinking about how cold he was. He was reaching into his jar and remembering, I lost 100 pounds in 3 months just to get here. I learned to read when everyone thought I was stupid. I have been through worse than cold water. He says, we must create a system that constantly reminds us who we are when we are at our best. Because life will try to make you forget. Pain will try to make you forget. The cookie jar is your evidence that you are tougher than you feel right now. It's about shifting your focus from the suffering of the moment to the strength of your history. And once you start doing that, once you start using your past pain as fuel for your present battles, something changes in your brain. You stop fearing the difficult times. You actually start to look for them. You start to intentionally expose yourself to discomfort, not just to survive it, but to build armor. And that leads us to the final piece of the puzzle: how to permanently harden yourself against a world that wants to keep you soft.
It's what Goggins calls callousing the mind. Think about a weightlifter's hands. After years of gripping cold steel, the skin doesn't just stay soft, it toughens up. It develops calluses. Those rough patches aren't damage, they're armor. They allow the lifter to handle heavier loads without tearing their skin apart. Goggins argues your brain works the exact same way. If you live a life of comfort, always seeking the path of least resistance, avoiding conflict, skipping the gym when it's raining, your mind stays soft. When adversity hits, and it will hit, you crumble because you have no protection.
But when you intentionally schedule suffering into your day, when you wake up at 4 a.m., not because you want to, but because it sucks, you are callousing your mind. You are building a layer of mental armor that makes the heavy things in life feel a little lighter. This is the ultimate takeaway of Can't Hurt Me. We've talked about the accountability mirror, getting brutal with yourself about your flaws. We've covered the 40% rule, realizing that when your brain says you're done, you're not even halfway there. We've discussed taking souls and the cookie jar. All of these are just different tools for the same job: mastering your own mind. The book teaches us that pain isn't a stop sign. It's actually the most important data point you have. It indicates that you are expanding, growing, and shedding the skin of the person you used to be. It's about reaching a point where you stop looking for a way out of the suffering and start looking for the lesson inside of it.
If you haven't read the full book yet, I highly recommend you pick it up. There is no substitute for reading Goggins' story in his own words. I've put a link to buy it right in the description below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure you're subscribed to The Last Read. We're going to be breaking down more books that challenge the way you think and live, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. For now, remember the standard you've set for yourself today. As Goggins says, don't stop when you're tired, stop when you're done.